so wonderful to see your face. Oh my goodness.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Erica. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. For those of you listening, Hannah has been, you're the person who's been on the show the most now, officially.
Oh my gosh, I'm the Alec Baldwin to your SNL.
You are. You are. And it makes me so happy because I love your work. I love what you do through Sunlight Tax, and you are also just a joy to be around and fun. So it's a delight to have you back on.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I feel the same about you.
So, before we dive into everything, you have been through a lot. Hannah is based in Asheville, which, as we know, was just devastated by the hurricane. And you have been on the ground through this process. I'm so sorry you have lost a lot through this process as well. And since you are an artist and you work with the arts community and you're on the ground, I really wanted to take a second to dive into all of this. And so I thought we could start by you taking us back um,
Mhm.
to what happened. Mhm.
Sure. So, I think the important context is that Asheville is at, kind of at the top of the Appalachian Mountains, all the way to the west of North Carolina. So it is inland about, depending on which coast, it's about 5 hours from the South Carolina coast, about 8 to 10 hours from the North Carolina coast. We are not on the coast, very much not. And so hurricanes do not hit here. Like we might get a little bit of rain after a hurricane. We don't get hurricanes. So that's the context. um, and we got 30 inches of rain before the hurricane hit. I need you to that has to sink in before you can understand why what happened. 30 inches of rain is incredible, like an unfathomable amount of water, and very different from like coastal areas like Florida. If you picture Florida as flat, there's no force when water comes in like that. It just goes off to it goes back out to the ocean. We're in a funnel. We live in the mountains, right? So it was a funnel, and all that water sheds off the mountains down into our rivers. Well, guess where artists have their studios in Asheville? All the industrial areas are built up along the rivers, the French Broad River and the Swananoa River. And so what happened is all that rain washed down from all the mountains all around and came down into those rivers. And the rivers rose higher than, it was a 500, in some places it was 1,000-year flood. In Asheville, it was probably between 500 and a 500-year flood and 1,000-year flood.
Wow.
The rivers rose 30 feet.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know,
Crazy.
a big bad flood would be 8 feet, right? This is unprecedented, just absolutely bananas. And no one knew, like, this scale was not in anybody's consciousness. And so we did prep for flooding, but nobody did the prep like expecting their buildings to wash away.
Yeah, I don't even think you can prepare for 30 feet. I mean, it's like that's an entire floor. Oh
Yes,
my
yes.
gosh, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned the outages as well, with the
Hmm.
electricity. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so it's beautiful here. It's just I mean, it's one of my favorite places on the planet. All this all these beautiful trees came down. So there were, they said like 40% of trees were affected. I mean, it is so people couldn't get out of their houses. The trees crushed houses and cars, they blocked driveways, they blocked roads, and then roads washed out, bridges washed out. So a lot of people just could not physically get out, to get food, to check on people. There was a like physical stuckness. We also couldn't get supplies in. So it was very scary. But also all those trees took out the power. Um, and then the flooding took out the water. So we had, most people, I had no electricity for 10 days. So we were camping in the house. Um, but day 2, when the flooding kind of reached its peak, it it broke the water main, and so everyone in the region lost water. So if you just picture you living without power and without water, and you couldn't flush a toilet, you couldn't do anything. It was very, and there was no cell phone service. The cell phone towers got, their power was lost as well. So we also could not get news. We could not communicate. I could not, for 48 hours, I knew my mother was watching the news and that I could not get a text. I could not even get a text message to her to say that I was okay. So like it was it
Too.
was intense. It was very intense. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
terrifying. Just, dealing with all of this and then not being able to communicate. We are so reliant on our phones and technology. And yeah,
Oh my
once you
gosh.
figure that out, it's just like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm so sorry. I know you'd shared this on social media. You are one of the artists that had a studio down in the River District. And mhm.
Y- Yeah, so I'm not in the River Arts District. Of course, I mean, River Arts District tells you where the where the artists were set up, right along a river that rose 30 feet. Um, that's actually not where my studio is. Mine is on the Swananoa River. So there's 2 rivers in town, and mine is on the other one. But yes, my studio flooded. There's no water line in my studio because the water went over the top of it. So like it's really bananas. You can only see the water line outside the building, like way, way, way up high.
So
And
it
so
totally
it's,
was.
it was totally submerged. Yeah. If you just think of your studio turning into tea,
Yeah.
just like every canvas, I have all my works for 20 years stored in there. So it was like all these shelves filled with racks of paintings. They all fell into the center and just dumped all the paintings in. And then, my studio is covered in 2 feet of mud. Um, it's it's chaotic. And now weeks out, it's got, black mold going up the walls, black mold on every painting, black mold on everything. So it's totaled. There's no salvage. It's just done. So
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
thanks.
That's,
Thank
you know,
you.
and just the fact that it was completely filled. I'd seen some pictures where there might be, yeah, a water line halfway up the wall or something like that, so that there could be some, but in this situation, and then the mold. And what are they going to do with the artist studios? Are they going to attempt to clean them out, or is that something where you have to knock it down and start over?
That's a great question. And there are a lot of really big questions to be answered in terms of like infrastructure and rebuilding here. Um, a lot of places in the River Arts District have been clearing debris and doing whatever salvage work they can. And there's been a massive volunteer effort where, they're like handing out hazmat gear and having volunteers come and help everybody clean it up. I mean, just like the debris alone, if you go through, there's not enough room to put all the debris from the ruined buildings. And so like when you just drive through Asheville along the rivers, it's just like piles of debris. I mean, these are like buildings and everything inside them, right? Piled on the sides of the road. Um, so there's some question, I mean, it was such a unprecedented flood that there's some logic to rebuilding in some of the places that did get flooded, but then some of the stuff that was right on the rivers, it doesn't make as much sense to rebuild there, and probably will be, just turn it into green space. But I don't know. I don't really know the answer. So some will be rebuilt where it is, and some is going to have to move.
Mm.
Most artists had to kind of get out. I mean, just to give you some numbers, like 4/5 of the properties in the River Arts District were destroyed, as in totaled, like not redeemable. 4/5. So that is just
Oh,
crazy. That is devastating. And then where I was, it's more like 90%.
oh my gosh.
Um, so to say that the flooding was bad would be understating it. It was historic, unprecedented, like epic. biblical.
Say that it impacted the artists because, we are makers of things, and these things are in our spaces, and we have
Hmm.
materials and everything else, you know. And I guess that makes me wonder, you as an artist who is also, I always call you a tax guru. I start to wonder, and I'm sure you have a lot of advice here. Um, when an artist goes through something like this and everything is totaled and they lose everything, in terms of the financial side of things, like, can
Hmm.
you share a little bit about what sunlight tax is doing, or what artists should think about in that position?
Yeah. So, I've done a couple podcast episodes on this. If your listeners don't know, I have a podcast called Sunlight. Um, and so my a couple weeks ago, I had an episode that is about tax relief that you get from disaster losses. This is a great episode, not just if you've experienced, a federally declared disaster like we did here in Western North Carolina, but it's also, if you have a studio fire, if you have a tornado, something smaller scale, but that affects you. There's actually quite a bit in the tax code to help you. Right off the bat, you get some automatic extensions of filing time. So you get your deadlines loosen up. Um, you also get the ability to declare a loss on both. It doesn't just have to be business property. This is the nice thing. It's business property and personal property. Usually you can't deduct personal stuff. So this is a kind of a rare thing. Um, and there's a really very generous provision there which allows you to file an amended tax return for either the year you've already filed your taxes or for the current year. So you don't have to wait until April 15th, months after you're suffering. You can immediately file an amended tax return for the year before, declare this loss retroactively in your amendment, and get cash back for the loss. So that's a big deal. Um, if you can do a little math, if you have an accountant who can help you with, like roughing out the numbers, you might want to compare this year versus last year to see which gives you the bigger check back.
Yeah.
That would be one reason to compare the 2 years rather than just go for last year's return. But I don't think that it's sort of in people's consciousness that you can file an amended tax return to get money back, but that is part of having a disaster loss, and it's a really big benefit. So anybody who's ever suffered a big loss should definitely be aware that that exists in the tax code.
That is huge. And we will be
Yeah.
linking to those podcasts. So everybody definitely check this out, because that's what I was thinking. Like, this is a huge, unprecedented flood that just, took out all these spaces. But there's also other things that impact artists, such as, a water main break, or something like that can happen,
Hmm.
where what do we do, because we are makers and we have all these things. So definitely think listening to that is good. And then I'm also curious if you have advice for artists who have lost, all their inventory or some of their inventory, who are not making the sales that they typically rely on right now. Like, is there any relief for that, or is that covered in those episodes? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, that's a little bit different, but let's talk about it. So I would say, there's insurance, first of all. I mean, a lot of artists didn't have insurance, and this might shock you, but I actually didn't have any insurance on my studio. And part of my logic there was like, if you've ever tried to get an insurance payout for artwork, you know how hard it is and how unlikely. They just Insurance companies get real weird around art. They don't like it. So proving that it has the value that you say it has, and it's a fight. And I also, I sort of made this calculus, like it will be a huge fight. It's an expense and money can't replace it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so there's that. But there are types of insurance, and it's worth really shopping around and looking hard, because I will tell you, when you talk to people in a disaster zone, you will see which insurance companies pay out and which do not. That's good information. Um, but there are definitely types of business insurance that will pay you for, lost sales, days out, There's debris removal. Like, this is not a thing that would have ever occurred to me to have insurance for, but there are some places around town that have debris removal insurance. And believe me, getting a bulldozer in and like moving I-beams that have fallen, like this is hard. This is hard to do. So, depending on the scale of your practice, you might consider things like that. Certainly talk to somebody in Asheville and get a sense of what what you might need.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Or
because I don't have insurance on my studio. I'm kind of
yeah.
like, well, it's connected to my house. Do I need to do
Mhm.
this? And like you said, dealing with insurance is such a headache. I mean, in general,
Yeah,
with any insurance, my health
truly,
insurance, like God.
truly.
Um, so yeah, I'm sure I'm hopeful that many of them did have something, but yeah, you just
Hmm.
don't think of that. You don't anticipate these things happening.
I know.
Um,
I will say, flood insurance is a whole thing. A lot of times even if you have disaster insurance, it doesn't cover flooding. So it's also like, there's things to be when you're choosing insurance, you really have to dig in. It's not the most fun exercise, but it is worth looking at the details because when the time comes you need it, those details end up mattering a lot. If you paid for disaster insurance, but it didn't include flooding, then like you got nothing. You've been paying those premiums and you got nothing.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So insurance is one way. Is there anything else that you would recommend in terms of like having a huge hit to your business where you didn't
Mhm.
anticipate it and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to move forward? In terms of tax or just financial planning for that?
Mm. Well, one thing, there's a lot of stuff that you wish for in retrospect that you can't go back and get. So this is a separate episode that I recorded on the Sunlight podcast, and we can link to it too. But I did one that just, things I learned from being in an emergency, like ways to be prepared. And a couple things are, and everyone listening could do this today. It's like really easy. Just photograph your stuff. Take some photo, get out your phone, go to your studio, take pictures of what's in there. Take pictures of all your work that's in there, but also your materials, do you store your photography equipment in there like I did? Do you My camera was not in there, thank goodness, but my lights, my very expensive lighting setup, all my tripods and stands and photograph everything because if it's destroyed, it's really actually hard to know what you lost if you didn't have it, like some pictures of it. So actually quantifying what you lost. You can do this in your home as well, because if you do have a disaster, then your home, you get to take personal losses. So just take your phone today and like go around your house and like take pictures of your stuff and take pictures of your studio. That's one thing you can do that you can't go backwards when you need it. So just do it now.
Mhm.
Um, and a similar thing to that is a lot of your important documents, like, birth certificates of your kids, the deed to your house and your title to your car, things like that. Sometimes you might be called upon to show those to like an organization like FEMA for disaster relief. And of course, if you've lost your house, you don't have those things anymore. So another thing that I recommend is taking photographs of those. So maybe today can be photo day for everybody listening.
I'm
um,
notes of like photo this to that.
yeah. Take some pictures. You want to keep those in a secure location. Those are things that someone could steal your identity with. So you need to be careful with that stuff versus, the stuff in your house. No big deal. But you want to keep it in the secure place like your Google Drive or Dropbox, something with some security to it. So that is a recommendation. And another thing, oh my gosh, cash. Just get some cash, keep it in your house. When the power is out, when there are lines 5 blocks long, actually much more than that, like miles long to get the only remaining gas in town, and nobody can take a credit card, cash turns out to be rather important.
Thinking about that a lot actually, because I spent my summer in Chautauqua and it's a very
Mhm.
cash-based area. Um,
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, I forgot. Like getting a 20 out of an ATM. It's been
Yeah,
decades since I've done this type of thing,
I
which was
know.
kind of fun for my kids in a way, like
Oh.
here's five, go get whatever.
Hmm.
But then we came back and an outage happened at a restaurant, and they
Hmm.
couldn't take our card. And I'm like, oh my gosh, cash yet again. It's a almost forgotten method of money, and
I
it's so good to
know.
have when you're in a crunch and there's
Hmm.
no internet or whatever, so
Exactly. If all the power goes out and the internet goes out, you can't use a credit card.
yeah.
Yeah,
And also just the credit card fees always drive me nuts, you know what I mean? Just like
fair.
running a business and how much money is taken off by credit card companies and, but whatever.
Hmm.
That's another episode, I guess.
Can you
But
imagine being a credit card company? You make 3% of all the transactions that happen just in all businesses. That's a lot of money. It's just a lot.
so much money. And it's not like you have to go market it. It's just like, they use the card every day or
Mhm.
every other day, whatever, and little bit of money here, here, and here, and here. It's just like, yeah, it makes me upset.
Yeah. I will tell you, like, one of the nuances of, you know, I did not do this in year one of my business. There's so much to take care of when you're starting out a business. But as I try to make things better all the time. This is like one of my mantras is like, we're never going to get perfection, but let's try for improvement. Um, so one of the things that I set up in my invoicing is that I have, the invoice is for the cash price. And that if someone, and that I want people to be able to pay by credit card, but I actually put the credit card fee on there. So that,
Mhm.
yeah, so that people can pay if that's their preferred method, they can pay that way, but that it helps me not have to eat the credit card fees. Yeah. And
Very
of course
smart.
they've got the option of ACH payments, so which is free for them. So,
I like that. I really like that. That also makes me think of my where my son goes to daycare. We've
mhm,
actually used cash there occasionally just because we don't want to be paying credit card fees or just different transaction fees because they want us to be paying in other ways. But
mhm.
always getting a receipt for that so that for our taxes we can have it in there. Um, so good to hear this. I love it. Everybody out there who's selling their work and taking, I think that's really great advice from Hannah is to add that 3% on top. And you can be very transparent, but that way you're not eating that fee when you're selling maybe your
Mhm,
work online or wherever it may be. Um,
mhm.
how are things right now on the ground in Asheville? Like what's happening right now with you guys?
Yeah. Well, super exciting news. This week we got water back. So we have drinking water.
Woohoo!
um, I have
Oh,
never known to be grateful. I mean, I guess, of course, in the abstract, I'm grateful for water, but I've really never thought hard about it like I did with, just like having to go fill up from these like charity setups around town and FEMA distribution sites. Like that's how we've been getting our drinking water. So, oh my gosh, the drinking water comes out of the tap now. It's so nice.
isn't it amazing? Like, you're right. Like, we have these creature comforts that we just take for granted, and we're so thankful for them. But then when it's taken away, yeah, it's like, oh my God, clean water that comes out of a tap right here,
Yeah.
whenever I want it. Oh, I want to go take a shower, like,
Hmm.
I'm so happy you got that because that's and you have a family and so there's a lot of people in there that need water.
Boiling water to wash dishes. Oh my goodness. Like it's made cooking so awful that we've used a lot of paper plates. I mean, everyone in town is doing that, like paper plates and disposable, because just like boiling your drinking water, like drinking water is so precious. You have to carry 100% of it from somewhere. You just don't want to you want to use as little as you possibly can. And boiling that for washing dishes is just like kind of the last the last straw.
Yeah,
So
you're serving it because yeah, you've got to get there, get it again, bring it back. I mean, oh my
mhm,
goodness. Well,
yeah.
I'm so happy you have water now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the downtown starting to come alive again, or what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so I want to be sure that I make sure to frame this as a regional issue and not just Asheville. Like all of Western North Carolina has been affected. And there's also, I think a lot of people don't realize that in Western North Carolina, one of the charms and like wonders of this place is all these little intentional artist communities that exist in the mountains. So I do want to name check like Silo, Black Mountain, Swannanoa, Penland, a lot of, they have the school at Penland, which is really famous. And all of these places have been affected really badly too. So it's not just Asheville, but here in Asheville, where I live, um, it is a tourist economy. It's beautiful mountains. There's like whitewater rafting and rock climbing and hiking. And it's the Blue Ridge Mountains. It is just beautiful here. And so we have this economy that is based on tourists. And for 2 months, we've had no tourists. And October is the peak season of leaf peepers. And we missed the whole month. So a lot of businesses are really suffering. It's been a ghost town. So getting the water back allows the restaurants to reopen, allows the hotels to reopen. So basically, like we are open for tourists now and we are begging you to come. Like, come to Asheville, do your Christmas shopping here, get some great meals. The food scene here is incredible. It's like we punch way above our weight for food. Um, so there's lots of like James Beard awarded restaurants here. It's like a lovely food scene. But oh my goodness, do these restaurants want your dollars? Because it's been a hard 2 months. So,
I'm so glad you shared this though, because I think that is a way because people are listening and they want to help potentially, they're like, I want to do something. What can I do? Well, that if
mhm,
we're looking for a little vacation or a weekend away and you're in
mhm,
driving distance of Asheville, let's go there because I had been personally thinking about going to Asheville before everything happened. And then I'm like,
mhm.
oh, I don't want to come be a burden afterwards because I have like a day I could pop in and I should go in and volunteer. But that's probably all I could do. So it's really good to hear from you. Like, come do some shopping, come spend some money on
Yeah.
food, just like
Mhm.
influx that way as well. In
Totally.
addition to being able to volunteer, help out in other ways. So I'm really glad you shared that. That's good for me personally to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not in Asheville, there's a couple really great initiatives. There's one called Love Asheville from Afar. If you just Google that phrase, Love Asheville from Afar, it'll show you a bunch of businesses that have inventory that are functional, that can ship, and you can, do some online holiday shopping to support Asheville businesses that we're really, really hoping will make it. Um, there's also, I'm a part of a group doing a thing called 1% for Asheville. So I'm actually giving quite a bit more than 1%, but um, I'm giving a large percentage of my revenue this year to grant relief for artists and small businesses in Western North Carolina. So I'm trying to make, Sunlight Tax, thank goodness, does not have a physical location. It's a virtual business. And thank goodness. Oh my gosh. Because any office space I would have had would have been on the river. um, but so because I'm up and running and have not lost my source of income, I feel like I really need to carry some more um burden is not maybe quite the right word, but yeah, carry more burden for the businesses that can't. There's a lot of businesses, friends of mine, my community, who are just unable to make any income right now. And so I'm donating back a huge percentage of my profits this year just to go to those grant relief funds for the community.
Anna, thank you so much for doing that. That's huge. That is huge. Being able to give back to our community and saying, "Hey, I wasn't impacted as much as these other spaces." So
Mhm.
give from Sunlight Tax. Do you have anything coming up right now that we could check out and link to, or anything that we need ourselves that could then also help Asheville?
Oh, I love that so much. Well, I'm I'm hosting a free class on December 5th. Um, this is a class that that I offer a couple times per year, and it's called Make Taxes Easier and Stash an Extra 130K in your savings. And in this class, I actually really do go through the math of how to get an extra $130,000. But it's about kind of some, top 4 mistakes that every artist makes with their taxes and why they cause you so much stress and cost you so much money, and my very simple system for, making it simpler. So that is a really cool 1-hour class. It's free. It's live on December 5th, Thursday, December 5th. And if people want to join that class, they will also get to hear about my program called Money Bootcamp, um, which is a really awesome program to set you up with the systems you need to sort of automate a lot of your tax processes and do the really hard stuff. Like, I'm an artist who understands why it is confusing and why it's hard. I have been in the bad place. And so this is really taught with love and empathy. So my program, Money Bootcamp, is, again, a huge portion of my proceeds from it are going directly to relief efforts here. And the ones that I keep are going to rebuild my own studio. So, yeah, I'm just trying to, I used to be very shy about talking about money, and now I just accept that it is in fact how the world runs. And like, I do in fact need the dollars. Asheville needs it. My studio needs it. My family needs it. So come to this free class, and I have a link. It's sunlighttax.com. Oh, sorry, go.sunlighttax.com/free. And that's where you can register for this free class, which is really great. It's kind of a taste of what's in the larger program. And if you feel called to the larger program, that's a great opportunity. I usually give a really juicy bonus in the free class. So,
Ooh, good to know right there. We
yeah.
will link that so you guys listening definitely check it out. And I have to say, from a personal experience, having worked with Hannah was awesome because, and you just said it there, like you have gone from feeling hesitant to talking about money to saying this is how the world works. We all need it. And I was the same way, still struggle with it in a lot of ways. And so to be able to talk to you, and I felt like you really saw me and understood where I was coming from, was incredibly empowering. It helped me have breakthroughs as well in my own money mindset.
Mhm.
Truly, truly. And so if you're an artist that is like many of us, know that Hannah, you're just coming from a really good space, and you're giving supportive, and it empowers us to see you being empowered. So December 5th, free class, we'll link to that, and then also to your program, Money Bootcamp.
Love it. I
Great,
love it.
great. Well, Hannah, this has been a pleasure. I wish we were talking about better, happier moments, right? But it's great to be able to come together, even these moments of crisis.
I know. I know. But you know what? It's funny, we were talking before we started recording that, like, I kind of wanted to share with everybody who, if you've been hearing these disaster stories, and they're very real and they're very painful. But I think the thing I want to share, and part of it is like you and me getting to talk right now, Erica, is like the level and degree of community support that has come out of seemingly nowhere because of this disaster has been the most heartwarming thing I have ever seen. I never realized, and I am a community builder, and so are you, Erica. I never realized how powerful community could be. Many hands really do make light work. I mean, just to give you a couple examples, like I knew that artists around town were going to need grant money, like no strings attached, quick money. And so I put a mutual aid link out when I got internet service for the first time. And people who follow Sunlight Tax gave over $20,000 in donations that I was able to turn around instantly and just pay this person's rent, help this person buy hazmat gear to do salvage work. Like I bought hazmat gear for my whole studio building because the whole building was washed out. There's like 16 artists in there. Like $3,000 just to this couple who was buying food and water and bringing them to these parts of Swannanoa, which had no road access. They were like hiking food and water in. And like, so all that money has gone directly, immediately, no strings to people who needed it. And I've just the stories that of just support are unreal. Like one of my former tax clients just reached out and he's like, "Hey, I want to apply for a Gottlieb grant for you. I'm going to do it. If you'll give me permission, I'm going to apply for this grant for you," which the Gottlieb Foundation allows you to do. And so that was amazing. I had this group in New Jersey put on a concert and did like a community event and raised $3,000 from like art sales and concert tickets. And they gave that for direct aid. I mean, it is the coolest thing in the world to see people just do for each other. So I want everybody, I know the disaster stuff is horrifying. It's real and it's scary, but the community part, I think maybe didn't get out in the news as much as it should have. It's just been the most amazing, beautiful thing. Like everyone here now knows their neighbors, who we didn't know before, because we've been like gathering on each other's lawns to listen to the 11 a.m. like news broadcast from the one neighbor who has a battery operated radio. I mean, it is so beautiful, so beautiful. So I hope everybody realizes that.
Thank you for sharing that, Hannah. Thank you. It is incredible. Like we know how important community is, but then when the rubber hits the road in terms of things really falling apart,
Hmm.
that I think is when community truly goes into action and you see the beauty of of just getting to know each other, of being humans and knowing, oh my gosh, I know you're going through something. I've been through something. I mean, it's the same thing with
Hmm.
grieving, it's terrible. But then
Hmm.
there's somebody else that's gone through it and you connect and can support each other in ways that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And so
Absolutely.
I think this is incredibly uplifting. And, we all want to do our part too and see how we can assist in this community, other communities, our own art communities. So thank you again, Hannah, for sharing that.
Awesome. And, I just want to shout out to you, Erica, because I feel like your podcast and your following and your work in general is so connective. It is so based around building the arts community. And I mean, like, I am a living example of how powerful that is and how uplifting it is in a time of darkness. So just thanks for the work you do. I think it is really important, really awesome, and really important.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Oh, this has been such a delight. Seriously, just like connecting with you. We need to do it more often.
Thanks.
So, all right. Well, we'll link
Awesome.
all of those things, and I'm sure you'll be getting some listeners in there for these free classes, your program, and more. So, in
Awesome.
the meantime, thank
Awesome.
you so much for being on here.
Thank you so much, Erica. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Bye.